Welcome in to Carps Corner, another big show planned here as we're plowing towards NFL draft. And that's going to start this Thursday night, the 3-day affair. Thursday, first round, Friday, second and third round, Saturday, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's going to be a pretty great affair. The NFL has done a fantastic job. This year it's going to be in Vegas. It's going to be beautiful, going to be fantastic. And really should put the NFL on great display. They wanted to have it obviously there a couple years back. COVID ruined that. So now they're here and man, should be a good one. Should be a good draft, despite the fact there's not a lot of quarterbacks that are going to be going high. I think there'll probably be 3 in the first round. I'm going to work on putting together a mock draft. I had a couple people ask, like, you're going to put together a mock. Well, the problem is when I do that, then, I look like an idiot, just like everybody else, when you put out a mock draft and all of your picks are wrong. Because the reality is, it's an educated guess. You try to connect the dots, value, need, relationships. The thing you can't predict is trades. You have one quarterback or one elite player fall, and all of a sudden someone jumps up to get him, and it kind of throws the whole thing into a tailspin. So I've never done a full mock draft myself. I've been a part of some things with ESPN and Sirius, putting together, mock drafts and mocking stuff out with a couple people where we'll take teams and roll through. But I'll try to sit there and do that, obviously, and get that out, I think, Tuesday, Wednesday before the draft, and see if I can put together 32 to a full first round. Top 10 would be easier, but see if I can do a full first round. And what will be tough is the fact that there's a lot of teams that have 2 picks, multiple picks in the first round. And so understanding what they're going to do with those picks, do they package them and trade up? I'm not going to anticipate trades because that's just a whole nother wormhole that you can dive into. And so I won't have any trades in it if I can get this thing pulled together. But how they trade and what they do. The Saints sitting there at 16 and 19, do they package those up, go up and get a quarterback if they ultimately need to? So a lot of stuff that's going to be happening, a lot of moving parts for the draft. Talk a little bit this show. We get into NCAA had some rule changes that, I don't think they're going to be all that impactful. But some I think are important, and some, a rapid response to something that happened last year in the bowl game at the end of the season. So I think it's important to kind of get some of this stuff, taken care of. They still haven't really fixed targeting the way that I like, but it's better than what it was before, trying to fix the faking injuries, stuff like that. So we'll get into that. It's lying season in the NFL. Don't believe anybody. Don't believe scouts. Don't anonymous scouts. What GMs say, what coaches say, and we'll talk about that and what all that means. Deebo Samuel, the hybrid weapon for the 49ers. What ultimately is going to happen with him, potential landing spots, and why I think some might be better than others, and what would maybe be the best for his career, and why trades happen. It's all relationship piece. When you have relationships, with people in the league, that's why you see some of these trades happen quicker than others, because there's already an understanding, there's a knowing that people are going to give it to you straight. Like, this is the value. This isn't, we're going to obviously try to get the best deal, but we're not going to sit here and pander and go back and forth and, stake in and move on stuff that, knowing that, we're just sitting here trying to, drive a ridiculous deal, and you may walk away from it. 2 people that know each other, they've worked together, they can be honest about it. They'll get together and make that thing happen. So Deebo Samuel, I initially didn't think he'd get traded. Now, the longer this thing kind of airs out, the more it looks like it could potentially happen. NFL doing some big things on the holidays this year. Very, very excited about that. And it's crazy to think that you'd be excited about the end of a year when we're only sitting here in late April. But I think that that's the case of what we're dealing with right now. And then I promise some of these, I'll tell some, quick stories about visits, with teams, workouts, how all those things ultimately go. And because those things wrapped up about a week ago or so ago. Now the hay's in the barn, there's nothing you can really do. As far as improving your stock, you can really only hurt yourself. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But wanted to open up with first and address the Mike Tyson situation on the plane. And if anybody's seen this, obviously happened last week. I'm watching this thing and, say Mike Tyson hit a dude on a plane. Guy comes to find out he's overserved. He's drunk. He's sitting there, all these videos. This is a product of the social media generation now. You get a guy who's drunk on a plane, sees Mike Tyson there, one of the baddest dudes in his prime and of all time. And I'd say right now, still one of the baddest dudes that you're going to find in the world. And the guy wants to make a spectacle of himself on the plane. And to the point where Mike Tyson reaches over the back, starts giving him some. Now, not a whole lot. And I don't think the guy was seriously injured with this. He was severely drunk. He does have a criminal history, and there's a lot of other things that he's been involved with. And his name's irrelevant because this guy is, fame monger, trying to do something out there. Like I said, product of the social media generation. And if Mike Tyson really wanted to, he would have reared back, reached back in that old Mike Tyson's punch and gave him one solid one and just knocked him out. He didn't do that. Gave him a little warning shot. I'm not condoning violence. I'm not endorsing that and saying this is what we should ultimately do. But we've gotten to a point now in society where people can just push and push and push. You know what? We're doing it all for the gram. We're going to do it all for Twitter. Do it all for TikTok. Pick your social media outlet. Things out there that I don't even know exist and what they are. We're going to do all this stuff to get on there and be, social media famous because we're over here messing with Mike Tyson. One of the baddest dudes around. Frankly, at some point in time, this has to happen. And probably I would have been more happy if you would have knocked him out, because the reality is you can't just act like an absolute fool and expect no repercussions in life. I understand that, hey, things are different. And I don't want people to go out and assault and snap back and respond with physical violence. But man, you can't act like a fool and acting like you're the little brother over here, picking, and doing it all simply for it to be on social media. And because you're drunk and saying, okay, I can't expect any retribution, any response from a guy like Mike Tyson, who sat there and took it all like a champ for a while. If I was on the plane, I would have stood up and started clapping. I would have applauded him for finally putting a dude in his place for acting like a fool. And all he did was get knocked in the head a couple times. And the reality is, I would have liked to see the guy get knocked out. So Mike Tyson bringing it strong. I enjoyed seeing that. I like to think that Mike Tyson still got it. I mean, I don't know if he's 60 yet, but he's in his 50s. I don't think he's quite 60. He's getting up there, man, but he's still got the thunder. He still brings the pain. And if you're going to mess with him on an airplane and act like an idiot, well, you got another thing coming. And so I'm glad Mike did that. So hopefully this will stave off any future attempts. It would have been nice if you would have knocked the dude out, because I think that would have been a much better parting shot. And you got to apologize me here. I apologize and bear with me. It's Ohio. It's the Midwest. It's blooming right now. It's beautiful outside. But with that, man, we got allergies like a mug. And so, runny noses, everything going on. So with the warm weather, the blooming, the beauty, all the great stuff that comes with it, holy smokes, man. It gets a little bumpy. It gets a little bumpy right here, and you get some nose running, get a little scratchiness in the throat and all that stuff that comes with it. NCAA rule changes. So this is something like, hey, what are some rules that we'd like to see fixed? Targeting. How can we get that fixed? Okay, we're going to address targeting. Awesome, NCAA. Thank you. Well, we're not going to really address it the way that you like it. We'll do some things and kind of get it there a little bit, but it's not going to be great. Faking injuries. We're going to talk about that. Well, yeah, we're going to address that. We don't really have a solution. Frankly, I don't know about a good solution. I don't know exactly what that ultimately would look like. A lot of, because it's really tough to parcel out, a guy who maybe just got the wind knocked out of him. Maybe there's a guy who really is hurt, maybe just cramped up, and legitimately those things happen. They want to get back in the game, versus a guy on the defensive side of the ball saying, hey, I'm just going to lay here for a minute, slow the clock down, slow the game down, come off, wait 2 plays, come back in. Like I'm not a proponent of that, but we've gotten to this point with these hurry up offenses and just how crazy we are right now with offense, tempo. Like defenders and defensive coaches, like they're no dummies. They're going to utilize the rules, maybe sometimes a little bit dishonestly, but they're going to utilize them to their advantage. We had the check scuba call when I was playing in the NFL, one of the teams. And I looked at the coach who threw it out there, and it was if we had it up for special teams if you ever ran a kickoff back. And here's the problem. You're on the kickoff back, or kickoff return. all those guys usually are back out there on the subsequent kickoff. And so they're gassed. And so you kick your extra point, like, hey, have one of the linemen go down for a minute. They're coming off the field anyway. Give yourself a few minutes. Everybody catches their breath. So when you kick off, you don't have to go out there and give up a 40-yard return yourself because all your dudes are so gassed and they don't have any juice to run down the field. So it's check scuba, call a number. I was like, why scuba? And they're like, what do you do with scuba? You take the dive. And so the check scuba call was out there then. But we got faking injuries. They're going to be able to submit these things to, the conferences, the league, like levy some additional punishment. The problem is this isn't the NFL where you can take draft picks or you can take, or you can fine, like, are you really going to fine these universities, $500,000, $250,000, like a significant amount to where the coaches won't want to do this anymore because their athletic departments or their head coaches won't want to pay that? Like, I don't know if you can get anything that is going to be punitive enough that'll ultimately change that. I think the faking injuries, maybe if somebody comes out, maybe they have to stay out for the remainder of the series. But like, if you get the wind knocked out of you, that's legit. And so maybe you wait for 3 or 4 plays, or maybe you have to stay out, 4 plays or something. I don't know. The fact that we've gotten here is Looney Tunes, but we're trying to find solutions to it. The injuries thing, I don't have a great solution offhand. I've thought about it. I've agonized over it. And I've looked at it both ways. When someone's faking and when someone has a legitimate injury, I don't know how to bifurcate that and tell the difference. I wish I could. I'm not that smart. So some things going on right there. Hopefully one day we'll fix it. They outlawed the Kenny Pickett's fake slide. So if you initiate the sliding sequence and look like you're going to do that, you can no longer run. You'll be deemed down there. And that's smart. You have to do that. Defenders are already in a tough enough spot to where when the guy starts to slide, you have to dive out of the way, move, can't touch him with an arm, a hand. You hit his helmet with your forearm. You're trying to get out of the way. Like, it's a 15-yarder, maybe, maybe you glance at helmet and he dives, literally slides underneath you as you're trying to tackle him in the waist. You get a glancing blow with the face mask, all targeting, you're ejected. And so the fake slide, you have to have something here for the defense so that they're in a better spot. And so thankfully now we got this fake slide, and hey, you're gonna initiate the sequence. Boom, you're down here. Whistle blows, plays over. So you don't have Kenny Pickett, it was a savvy move. I like the guy as a quarterback. Fake slide. You watch the defenders. Boom, everyone stands up. He keeps running, weaves around. I believe he ran for a touchdown, but ran for like another 25, 30 yards. So those days are done. Defensive holding is going to stay a 10-yard penalty, but it will be like the NFL model now. It will go to automatic first down, which I get, and I'm not against that. Even being a defensive guy, that's the way it is in the NFL. It's still a 10-yard penalty. You're going to hold, it gives them an automatic first down, and generally it's going to be the case anyway. Unless you have like a 3rd and 12, then it's a 3rd and 2. But this way, automatic first down, moving the chains. And then we get to the targeting issue. So what they're going to do now is have an appeals process where currently, if you have a targeting in the first half, you're ejected, you have to sit out in the second half. If you have a targeting penalty in the second half of a game, you miss the remainder of that game, and then the first half of the subsequent game. So it's very, very punitive depending on who you're playing the next week. And you may be in a game in garbage time and garbage minutes. You're a starting defensive player. You get a targeting call and you may be ejected. And let's say you have the big rivalry game next week, a college football playoff game, conference championship, who knows? There's a litany of things that could happen, but that's good to get that cleaned up and work on this, because what they did now, and I don't know how it's going to work, and it's probably going to be really clunky, but if you get a targeting in the second half, the week in between before the next game that you would be sitting out the first half of the game, you can appeal it. Who are you appealing it to? What's the process like? I have no idea. The details on that will come out and they'll probably be hazy and murky. And I don't know if it's really going to result in a lot of these being overturned. I really don't think it probably will be, but at least it will make you feel better that there's something that's egregious. Cause you have to remember, a targeting call, it's not like it's a bang, bang, and they don't review it. They review it in the box. Let's remember this. They review all of the targeting calls in the box. And those things take 5 minutes sometimes before they ultimately have the ruling of whether it was administered correctly. And so you can appeal it And I don't care if the guy's going to look at it for 3 hours. Are they really going to change their ruling at that? It wasn't like it was a live play on the field and you review it then to the box to give yourself slow motion in different angles. So appealing it over the course of a week, I don't think that's going to make a difference. I mean, it sounds great in theory. And as I was explaining it, I'm like, this isn't a bang, bang play. They throw the penalty, but then you ultimately go up top and look at it. So when you go back to appeal that, maybe it gets changed. Probably not. Ultimately, it probably doesn't. What needs to happen for the targeting? Targeting 1, targeting 2, like flagrant 1 and flagrant 2 in basketball. Incidental stuff, non-intentional stuff, flagrant 1. All right, you get a 15-yarder, no ejection. Flagrant 2 is if you're a habitual line stepper, like Rick James and Dave Chappelle's skit by Charlie Murphy, habitual line stepper. You're multiple time offender in the game, maybe you're second or third, pick a number. Incidentals, all right, now you're ejected. Or you can see that there's clear intent, then you're ejected. Flagrant 2, obvious and clear intent, which I think most times you would be able to legislate that and rule it. So, hey, we give you a couple freebies. If they're incidental, probably that's going to take care of most of it. If there's a time where you line a guy up and bam, hit him, you're ejected. Unless you're, like I said, someone who commits these all the time, you're going to be fine. So that's going to put a bow on the NCAA rules. That would be my solution for the targeting. I don't think this appeals process is going anywhere, but who the heck knows? All right. What we've heard in the NFL last week, all these anonymous sources and scouts talking about quarterbacks, talking about the receivers, offensive linemen, all these different things. You're sitting here looking at this, trying to figure it out. It's lying season. Don't believe anything that people say. Information that is out there is always out there for a reason. I will say this over and over again. When something gets leaked to a member of the media, they wanted it to be heard. Whoever put it out there, and then you have to figure out who would want this to be out there and why would they want it to be out there. Those are the questions that you have to ask yourself. And so for the next 72 hours, it's going to be this trade and this thing, and then they're working on that. This team doesn't like this guy, and maybe they're all going to trade up and they love this quarterback, and all this misinformation, man. And they put it out in the media, and the fans love it. It's red meat as you're sitting here right on the cusp of the draft, like, yeah, our team's going to do that, or someone else is going to do this. The reality is, like, some of these teams look at that and they'll hear what people are saying. And depending on how well you know what the other coaches, maybe you coach with them or front office execs, you know them well, you can maybe pick up little nuggets and hear things about how they're talking, but it's a lying season. Don't believe a word of what you're hearing. Probably 10% of it's true, maybe 20, but there's nothing out there. So don't worry about that. One of the guys that's a topic of conversation, big time right now, Deebo Samuel, the elite wide receiver / running back for the San Francisco 49ers. Wants a huge deal. Want to pay him. Probably don't want to play running back as much as he was either. You get beat up. They don't get paid as much. You're shortens your career life, all of these different things. But he loves it there in San Francisco, playing in Kyle Shanahan's offense. Now, it's been reported that there's a couple teams that are interested in it. And I'll believe these reports. The Jets, the Lions, and the Packers. All right. Jets, they got a ton of cap space. They need to add some weapons. They can do it in the draft, or they can, and they were in on Tyreek Hill. They missed on him. And so there's legitimate desire for them to go out and get a playmaking wide receiver. So the Jets would check that box. Lions, maybe not. They probably they have cap room, and they'd probably like to obviously upgrade their offense. And he's a really nice weapon. You got to remember Dan Campbell coached underneath Sean Payton. So he has that unique way of probably looking and saying, hey, what all can we do with this guy? He's a little bit Alvin Kamara. He's kind of like the wide receiver running back version of Taysom Hill. We can move him around and be really creative with him and give our opponents nightmares to match up with. So maybe a little bit with the Lions. But the one team I think that it's critical, and the one issue they're going to have, is cap space. But Devontae Adams is gone, so it probably opened up a decent amount. Is the Green Bay Packers. They got a couple first-round draft picks. They've got an aging quarterback who is all in. They're trying to go win a Super Bowl with. The way Deebo Samuel fits really well with what the Packers want to do. West Coast, run, get the ball to receivers, watch them break tackles, down the field routes. They can move him around, be really creative with it. Let's not remember, Matt LaFleur is their head coach. Why does that matter, you ask? Well, San Francisco is the team where Deebo Samuel currently plays. The relationship with Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan goes all the way back to when they were with the Texans in 2008. And so you start looking at that's 14 years. It's a long time. They had multiple coaching staffs and times in Atlanta and Washington where they've been together. And so there's a trust, there's a relationship. I guarantee you, Matt LaFleur looks and he's saying, hey, this is what Kyle's doing with him. We can do some of the same things, similar terminology, similar offensive style, offensive scheme. And this would be a pretty big deal for us to ultimately bring him in. We've got the draft capital to go get him, and we're in a win now mode. And so I like the Packers with this simply due to a lot of the relationships. And with the Jets as well, you have Robert Saleh, who's their head coach, defensive coordinator with San Francisco. And so obviously him and Kyle Shanahan have that relationship as well. But he's on the defensive side of the ball. Matt LaFleur looks at this. We run a very similar offense. A lot of things are going to line up. I know how Kyle thinks. I know how he's using them. We can use him in a similar way. And it would be a great situation. He'd come here. We'd be close to winning. And hopefully this would help put us kind of over the top. And they have the draft capital to pull it off, should they want to get that done. And so I really like the idea. If Deebo Samuel does end up getting traded, I like it to the Green Bay Packers. And then obviously that would change, where they're at in the draft. They may still draft receiver early. Depends on all the capital they have to give up. I can't imagine two first rounders? Seems steep, but you never know. Maybe just one. And we'll see kind of how that all shakes out right there. But other big news that in the NFL as well. NFL Christmas is falling on Sunday. NBA has traditionally owned Christmas Day. And the NFL, they're pulling Big Brother. They're pulling rank. And they're going to say, you know what? Not only going to play a game on Christmas Day. We'll play 2 afternoon games, followed by a nightcap on NBC. And so it's Sunday. The NFL would normally play the bulk of those games on Saturday, and they're going to do that on Christmas Eve. They're going to have a Christmas Eve NFL Network game, and they're leaning in big time. And then you look ahead to 2023. Christmas falls on a Monday. They said they're going to play 2 or 3 games on the Monday of Christmas. And so this isn't like a one-off. They're leaning in hard on the NBA. The NFL is king. I think they want to assert their dominance. They want to show everybody that we have the best product in the world. We've got the streaming services. We got all the different TV media partners that are coming in. And just because the NBA has owned this holiday real estate for a long time, we're coming in. We own Thanksgiving. Now we want to own Christmas. And we're going to go and we're going to take it. The only thing they probably won't do is mess too much with the bowl season. But everything else, they're going to lean in hard. And I believe in 2024, Christmas falls on a Wednesday. Don't be surprised if you don't see a game or two there. And they'll probably tweak the schedule and give them a Thursday night to a Wednesday and figure that all out. But the NFL wants to be visible at the biggest times and in the biggest moments. Christmas is that. The NBA's always had it. The NFL now is going to say we're playing 2 games in the afternoon, 1 game at night, full game slate of games Saturday, a Christmas Eve game leading into it, which will disrupt my tradition of watching It's a Wonderful Life. We're going to do it the next year again on Monday and put a couple games on during the day and a game in the evening. We're taking Christmas from the NBA. Mark Cuban's not going to be happy about this, but I don't think any of the NFL owners are ultimately going to care. Last time I'll finish with this. Got some, some stories. What's going on right now? When these guys take these visits, what are these visits all about? So I took visits to Cleveland, Miami, Dallas, the Jets, the Patriots, and the Jets. And that was the order of which they were drafting and could have potentially taken me. So I go down to Miami, down there with Nick Saban. And I always joke with this, like you look at Saban, big bad dude. My defensive coordinator, Mark D'Antonio, was with him at Michigan State and talks about how tough he was on his coaches, how hard he was to work for, but how smart he was, obviously, as well. And you see how successful he's been. But Nick Saban, he goes in there, he had a clicker in the Miami Dolphins office. He had this huge office, overlooked the facility, or overlooked the practice field, second story. Had a remote that would close the door for him whenever he wanted the door closed. Boom, hit this thing, close, kind of like Dr. Evil. Little dropout chair there. The door would slam shut. And in his shelves, we started talking and, this, and he's like, I'm just this hillbilly from West Virginia. Played at Kent State with my uncle actually as well. And so, we had a very cordial conversation and, I knew a lot of their scheme stuff. There were similarities, but he ultimately goes to this and he's like, every day, he's like, I drink Mountain Dew. And he's probably changed this. This was 15 years ago. He's like, I drink Mountain Dew, cans Mountain Dew, oatmeal cream pies, and Red Man. And that was that was basically Nick Saban's diet. And he opens up his cabinets in there. And literally that's all that was in there. One whole shelf, oatmeal cream pies, Mountain Dews up top. They were loaded in the fridge below to get them cold. And then packs of Red Man up there. I'm like, this dude, he must have it figured out. I mean, he'd only won one national championship with LSU at that point, and I believe heading into his second season and final season in the NFL with the Dolphins. But that's a little window into that, and so you go there, you meet with the coaches. You're meeting with medical people. I had a broken ankle, so I'm meeting with docs and different things. They want to check on all my stuff. You have dinners. The owners, front office, head coaches. Sometimes it's one-on-one. Sometimes it's groups of guys that they bring you in with. But the whole thing is a test. It's all an interview. And they put you in there. And sometimes they make you uncomfortable, especially, like I had some, stuff around me personality-wise, like can be a little bit of a hothead, can get upset, lash out. And so, maybe they screw up your meal a little bit. Something happens, things aren't going as smoothly as they should. And that's by design because they want to see how you react. Because if you can't keep it together when you're supposed to, how the heck, and you need to, how the heck are you supposed to do this in the middle of a game when your emotions are running hot? They don't want a guy like that. Or when you're out on a Thursday night getting a fight, and you have to Mike Tyson some dude. Like they want to make sure that you can keep your composure. And so they test you a little bit with that on this, this full, full 1-day interview that they ultimately put you through. And so it's a big piece of this. And I was doing an interview with someone, radio hit, and they asked me, like, well, don't the guys know that? I'm like, yeah, I tell them all. And their agents tell them, this is all being tested. Wear a suit, look respectable, look nice, look professional, be on time. Don't be late coming out of your hotel room. We'll meet you in the lobby at 9:00. Be down there at 9 a.m. Be down there at 8:50 because they're going to see when you come rolling in. If you got red eyes, if you went out the night before. And they're like, if everybody knows that, how do they not screw it up? Like everybody knows they're going to get drug tested at the combine. And yet there's still guys that fail it. It's not a drug test. It's an intelligence test. Either you've got a serious problem or you're not smart enough to figure out that they're going to test you like they tested everyone every other year. So that's kind of, what it's all about. So you have all the visits, you have the workouts, and I'll tell some workout stories as well later. With it, because there's some good ones there too, of just how those go, and those can be rough as they come to work you out at your school. Because when you go to the buildings, when you go visit teams, they bring you in and you're one of their 30. There's really they're not allowed to work you out. There's no physical element to it. They can like walk you through some medical stuff, but there is no workout element of that visit. But after all that's done, the only thing you can do is hurt your draft stock. Remember Laramie Tunsil from 5-6 years ago, with the gas mask, smoking weed. I joked with people in my agency coming out. I'm like, you know what? I might call my agent like at 2:30 the night before the draft. It used to be on Saturday, Sunday when I was coming out. I'll call him at 2:30 and like fake like I got a DUI just to ultimately see what he does. Because it's like you're right there getting ready to cash your lottery ticket, getting a chance to play in the NFL, get drafted as high as possible. And some knuckleheads go out and they get arrested and get in trouble the week before the stinking draft. Like, dude, if there's ever a time for you to chill out, that's the time to do it. And so I was going to joke with my agent about it. The problem is it probably might have given him a heart attack. And so I didn't want to do that. But that was like swirling around my mind. Like, man, this will be great. I'll pull up. I'll be like in a panic, send him a bunch of texts. He'll wake up the next day in a cold sweat. Draft starting at noon. He thinks he's on damage control. And then I'm ultimately just messing with him. And that'd have been probably bad because he would have probably started calling teams already to get that figured out. And then they would have realized that I'm just an unrelenting jerk as well and like to mess with people, which is all true. So maybe try to get that mock draft, get that figured out for the next show. Tell some more draft stories, my draft day. I'm going to try to get a deal, have AJ Hawk on, talk about some of our draft experiences playing in the NFL. So I'm a little bit lighter and work through that. But that's all for this edition of Carps Corner. Keep subscribing, keep liking, comments. keep promoting it. Thank you so much for all the support. It's been fantastic. I'll continue to push that. So appreciate everything as this thing continues to grow. And I look forward to talking to you soon.